My name is Professor Sylvester Henderson. I am the CEO of Professor for Life Incorporated. On Professor for Life Incorporated, each of you know that I interview well-known academics and professionals from all over the world. And I am so honored today to be able to interview Dr. Felicia Henderson, who is the Associate Professor at Northwestern University located in Evanston, Illinois. She works in the Department of Radio, Television, and Film. Welcome, Dr. Henderson.
Thank you, Doc. It's so good to see you. I really appreciate you spending time with me.
Absolutely. You know what? This is a special one because we both have the same last name.
I know people are like, oh, he's just interviewing his fam.
That's right. Dr. Henderson, could you please introduce yourself and your company, WaterWalk Entertainment, to our digital media community?
Yes, thank you for asking. I am Dr. Felicia D. Henderson. I am the president, CEO, and main content creator for WaterWalk Entertainment. We do everything from writing, producing, directing, film, television, and theater, and comic books, as well as mentor the next generation of content creators. And as you already said, I am also associate professor in the Department of Radio, Television, and Film at Northwestern University. Go Wildcats! And I'm happy to be with you today.
And how do you like living in Illinois or traveling back and forth to Illinois?
I know, but you know what? I love it, first of all. I go back and forth between LA and Chicago. You know, it's in Evanston. Northwestern's in Evanston, which is the suburb of Chicago. So I go back and forth. But I have to tell you, I love me some Midwesterners. They are the kindest, gentlest, sweetest people. I love it there. It is such a mellow place to be. And just the vibe that, it's a vibe, and it's a vibe that I really love. So I love being there. Then of course I miss my family and friends and, boo in LA. Then I run back to LA, I'm specifically from Pasadena, California. And so Pasadena, it's always in my heart, will always really be home.
Wow. Can you talk to our digital media community about, you just talked about where you grew up, but share your academic journey. Where did you attend college with your bachelor's, your master's, and
thank you.
And most recently, your doctorate?
Yeah, so my entire academic journey, like I said, I'm from Pasadena, so I graduated Pasadena High School. And I went to UCLA. And my journey has been such a sort of circuitous one because it took me a long time to find, like, what do I want to do? I knew what I was good at. And, in high school and in college, counselors encourage you to do what you're good at. And I was good in math and science. So that's what I thought I pursued first. And I'm like, I want to be a doctor. I did always love to read about science. I love to read about science and medicine. So that was my first pursuit. My first degree is in psychobiology because my goal, I was like, I'm going to medical school. I'm going to be a doctor. And I love the study of the brain, and I love the study of behavior. So that's why I majored in psychobiology. I still read everything I can about neurology and neuroscience and, how the brain works. I've always been obsessed with the brain. And then in the meantime, my father had a massive stroke and had to learn how to walk and talk and everything. And so I spent a year taking care of him. And in spending that year taking care of him, I realized I was more interested in research. Like, I'm a research person more than I'm a person who would like to have patients and, sit down with patients every day. I like research. So I went to go work at UCLA in the UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute and study brains and alcoholism. And I loved that. And then I was like, but do I love it enough to do it for the rest of my life? I've always been one who's had a wandering spirit. I'm like, if it's interesting to me, I'll try it. And so from there, I was like, well, I got an opportunity to get a job on the business side in corporate finance. And because I was like, I need to make some money. So I'll finish school while working, working. And so I did that and found that I really loved finance. Like, oh, this is the kind of math I like related to finance. And I like the art of the deal. And so my boss there is like, well, if you think you're going to stay in this field, you need to go get an MBA. I was like, let's do it. So I went and got an MBA, where I where my focus was on corporate finance and nonprofit management, because I also always knew wherever I end up, part of my life has to be giving back in some way. And that's always been important to me my whole life. So that's what I did there. And I was like, I'm on my way. But while I was at my MBA, I had a fellowship from NBC and the Peabody Foundation, so my MBA is at the University of Georgia, where the Peabodys are housed. And so being in that program, then after graduation, NBC was like, or as we neared graduation, what do you want to do? And we have this management training program. And I'm like, maybe I should try that. So came back home to Burbank, and I was what was called a broadcast associate. And so that's the management training program. And I then thought, oh, I'm going to be president of a network one day. That's what I thought I'd do. I saw the president's job. I'm like, I want his job. And but it really was where I first was exposed to scripts. And I started to read them, and I always loved to write, but I never considered a career as a writer. So I'm like, I'm really interested in this. And then, of course, I'm like, well, how much do they make for this? Well, I was still in my management training program, learning marketing and publicity and really promotions and creating comedies and creating dramas. I learned the whole business of how to run a network, but I really started getting interested in scripts there. And from there, again, that same boss told me about the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop. And he's like, I think you're a writer. I said, I don't think so. He said, no, I hear you talk about writing. I hear the kind of notes and feedback you give on scripts. And so I applied to the Warner Brothers program and I got in it. And truly, I've been a writer ever since. It was a comedy writers program. So my writing career started in comedy. But after 5 years, maybe 6 as a comedy writer, I started to say, but what other kind of writing is there? And realized I think I'm more interested in drama writing, where you're telling more of a story. It's not all for jokes. So I went back to school so I could learn more about drama writing and feature film writing, and got my MFA in screenwriting at UCLA. And then while I was at UCLA getting my MFA, there was a requirement that you take 2 what they call critical studies courses in the critical studies department. Now it's called cinema and media studies. And it was really the study of the business I was making my living in. And I'm like, this is also interesting to look at it from a point of view of scholars. I never even knew of the study of this business like that, and in the media and messages and what all of it, and the history of filmmaking. And one of those professors said, you really write like a scholar and you're very interested. Have you considered a Ph.D.? And I was like, no, I'm a successful writer. At the time, I was like the showrunner on Soul Food. I'm like, no, I've got this whole career. I just wanted to learn more about writing, They're like, you should think about it. And I thought about it for about 5 years, and, still starting to read that kind of stuff, started to read more, critical analysis and media and cinema studies analysis of the business, and always kept in touch with my professors. And finally, I was like, I'm ready. And I applied and then got into the PhD program at UCLA while still writing the whole time. I took 1 year off so I could study for my comprehensive exams. But other than that, I've now been a scholar and a creative writer for the last 10 years, doing both.
Wow. And now
that was a long answer, huh? I'm sorry.
No. You know what? I think the amazing thing is that the joy of me working as a host and interviewer, that I get a chance to hear people express themselves. And I think that was such a wonderful way in which you expressed yourself, because basically you called it a wandering sort of character. You characterize yourself as wanderer, and kind of like a wanderer.
Yeah,
I kind of looked
I
at
have a wandering spirit.
and I kind of said, well, I wonder if it's wandering or is it just that she's just very creative. And so all these different things, psychobiology, the psychology of the human body. You know what? If you think about it, and then the business, which is dealing with, understanding how to run a company and to manage a company, and then, the math of the fine arts, how to sort of delve more into all of the intricacies around theater and acting and all those things. And then you finish your Ph.D., I think it's in cinema and media studies, dealing with film and the total gamut. So to me, it's just, it's all worked up to make you into Dr. Felicia Henderson. And that's a good thing. Having said that, how do you balance your roles as an instructional, academic, and entertainment professional? That has to be very challenging.
You know what? It isn't. It isn't. And it's really quite wonderful. And the synergy is quite wonderful. I'll tell you first how it works well, and then when it is challenging. But it works well because I am a working professional. When I go into the classroom, I'm speaking from a point of view of knowing exactly what I'm talking about, and in a contemporary way, what I teach, because I teach, television history. I teach Black television history. I teach screenwriting. I teach screenwriting for directors. I teach the creative management of running a show. So I teach all of this stuff that I know what I'm talking about. And then I, coerce my friends to come and be guest speakers in my classes.
Oh, wow.
And then with Zoom now, I could be like, and here's my friend, she's shooting a film in South Africa right now, but she's coming to us because of Zoom. And that kind of thing. And I have really beautiful friends with beautiful souls who are very successful. So I'm able to bring in writers, directors, and actors, and line producers, like everything for them. And I have in like my show running, the creative management of show running course, I have what I call a dilemma of the week. And the class has to look at that thing, the problem that I give them, and solve it. And all of my dilemmas come from real experiences. I don't have to make up any of them. So I always can tell them what really happened after they tell me what they would have done. So, and I luckily, like my students, they're pretty smart sometimes, and when they are really wrong, because I also teach with a lot of humor. I believe in that, my sort of, I guess you can say, my style is very casual. I love my students. I love teaching, and I hope that comes across. So when they're really wrong, I make a lot of fun of them. I'm like, oh, you're fired day one. That's your answer. I give them a hard time. So that way it works really well. And even when I'm running a show, believe it or not, and all the responsibilities of that, even directing, all the responsibilities of that, it still is great synergy because I'm the boss. So I can say, I'm going to have 4 students come in to intern, put it in the budget. I'll find, I'm going to still be on budget. Everything will still be beautiful. There will still be enough money spent on the screen. But I need them to come and be able to see what we do, the business they're going to be in a real way. So the only time it's a challenge, because everything I'm doing, I always want students involved. It's only a challenge if I'm not the boss. So if I take a job as a consultant and I say then to the showrunner, hey, I'm a professor. I want my students, to come. They're like, we don't have time for that. We don't need extra bodies. We don't need, then I find myself trying to talk them into, please, let my students, come be a part of it, and, have to figure it out. And it's a little bit more juggling. It's a little bit more, okay, of the management of the process and making sure you choose the right students so they don't end up going, I knew we shouldn't have done this, because it is a lot of money is being spent. There's a lot of money being invested, tens of millions of dollars. And the last thing you want is a student who wasn't ready for the opportunity to do something stupid, quite frankly.
Wait.
So that's the only time, though, is if I'm not the boss. When I'm the boss, it all is gravy.
Wow. You know what? I like it because basically you give your students workforce development experience, as we call it, in the community college. You know what? Your professional work spans iconic shows like Soul Food and many others. What personal experiences or cultural influences most shape your storytelling voice?
Oh my God, you're trying to get deep. You're trying to catch me up in something.
Yes.
That is a beautiful question that I have never been asked. It's certainly not quite like that. Thank you for that question, making me think. Well, you know what? I think every space I enter into creatively, I'm very family oriented. I come from a very big, crazy, but close-knit family. I'm one of 8 kids. I'm raised by my mother and father, but in 2 separate households. But
Okay.
equally in my life, spent my young life with my mother, then went to go move with my father, as a young teen. So there's some days, where culturally I'd be very influenced, like, oh, I'm my mother's child. Mostly when I'm giving people grace, when I'm being extra kind, when I'm giving people grace who don't deserve it. Because it's the right thing to do, when I am making sure that I'm being led by God, when I am not ignoring God, when I am being my mama's child. And then mess with me, get on my wrong side, or when it's just time to fight. That's my daddy's child. When I try to operate in the world or move through the world as my mama's child. But sometimes that makes people take your kindness for weakness. And when they take my kindness for weakness, then they get to see Smitty. That's my daddy.
Okay.
So I'm very influenced by where I came from. My mother's, from Mississippi. My dad was from Texas. And family was everything. My grandmother lived with us, when I lived with my mom. So we've always been multi-generational. I am, at this point, believe it or not, I am a great auntie. So we have 4 generations, of family right now, and we see each other. And so I'm very influenced. So even if I'm doing, Professor, like a sci-fi project, because I love sci-fi, I love supernatural, I love genre, there's still going to be, for instance, a father-daughter relationship in there somewhere, because I'm raised by my dad and he was my best friend. So it could be, a story about monsters, and there's going to be some dynamic that's a father-daughter dynamic, because I'm that's what I'm influenced by, culturally speaking. I'm very much culturally speaking about my people. So I'm actively Black. I'm blackety black, and I do everything I can to raise my people up. So I'm very, always culturally aware of the need for, if I ever walked there, there will be someone who looks like me walking behind me. That my footsteps were ever in a space, then they were there so that I can make room for someone who looks like me.
Wow.
That's very, very important to me. It's more important to me now than it has ever been, given as we watch a man in the White House try to take us back to maybe the 1950s or 40s, certainly pre-civil rights. And it becomes more important to fight to not only continue to gain ground, but not to lose the ground despite his best efforts.
Wow. Dr. Henderson, you are enthralling me with your words and your kindness, but your great sensitivity to people of color. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. How do you approach writing complex, multidimensional characters, especially Black women who defy stereotypes in mainstream media?
Ooh, thank you for that. Sometimes I'm able to, sometimes you look back and people are like, oh God, look at all that time you wasted. You got a degree in this and that, then you were over here, then you were over there. And actually, all of it influences my writing and gives me the opportunity to write more interesting, complicated, complex, multidimensional, multicultural characters. So I would say my life, that I've done so much in different things, that the fact that I'm a kid from Northwest Pasadena, in other words, the working side of town, the working class side of town, that's where I come from. A working poor background. And yet I had this amazing opportunity to become an incredibly educated person. So I'm just as home with my cousins who sit on the corner, offer me a joint that I do not take, as I am. I'm as comfortable with him or her as I am with the president of Northwestern. So that is, a whole range of access of the kind of people I've been around. And therefore, I can bring all that to bear when I am writing characters. And particularly when you talk about Black women characters, the most amazing, complex, brilliant creatures God has ever decided to create. It's so much fun because we are so interesting to me. We are so bright. We are so complex. And we come from a variety of backgrounds. We're not a monolithic group of people. So I might write a working class mother of two, where her children have two different fathers, but she is living for those kids. She's never been married, as I did in my recent short film that I was out in the festival circuit with. But she will kill you over those kids. So she's just as relevant and interesting and important, and I know her very well too, as the woman that I write who might be a psychobiologist. A Black woman, her who's in this very, rarefied air, working at some institute where they're studying the brain. I'm comfortable with both of those women, and I'm comfortable with both of those women being Black.
You know what you're describing? Just simply the spectrum of life, the full spectrum of life. Having said that, what was the most creatively challenging project you worked on? And how did you overcome those hurdles? If there is such one.
It's so funny when I think of challenges. Challenge is like a complicated word for me because I feel so blessed to do what I do. But what I do is in a world that baked into the sauce, there are problems every day. Every day something goes wrong. Every day, something you did not plan happens. Every day, you are pressed to solve a problem you didn't even know you were going to have. Right. So the people who don't thrive in this business are ones who can't move in such an environment. But if you accept it as your normal and you realize, but I asked to be here, this is my prayer. Challenge is just like, oh, you mean what is a normal day? Because a normal day is when all that stuff happens, And I am a person who is calm under fire. The crazier things get, the calmer I get. So because I'm a problem solver, I'm very in touch with, okay, so we need to do, it's my superpower, and it is also my kryptonite. Because, I want to solve problems. And so sometimes it makes me not listen to you long enough for you to feel heard. Because once I know what the problem is, I just want to go solve it. You want to tell a whole story about, so the tree fell on the house where we were going to shoot today. And we didn't know the tree was going to fall, but we've already called the city and they said they can remove it in 48. I don't really need the story. So the tree fell, we can't use that house today. Okay, we got this and we got to do that. Move those scenes around. We'll shoot that first while we look for another house, and we'll push those scenes. Like, I'm already solving the problem. So for me, challenges like, oh, you mean every day? That's the business that I asked to be in. So, get busy. The most challenging, however, was a show that I was on called First Kill. And it was a vampire versus vampire slayers show for Netflix. And it was challenging because it was in the middle of COVID and it was the outbreak. And we were one of two, I think, the first two shows to go back into production while COVID was still,
Wow.
there weren't even vaccinations yet. I'll put it like that. We were, I think, 2021, and we went back to work with no vaccinations. And so the protocol, which, Netflix had worked with the White House, was so challenging, and everything you had to do, and it of course made the show more expensive to shoot as well. But as the showrunner, the executive producer in charge of all of it, I was very protected because they're like, you can't go down. If you go down, the show goes down. So it's like nobody, that 6 feet rule and stay away. There was literally someone who followed me around with a ruler, with a 6-foot ruler. And so that people would always know if she flipped that thing out, that meant you're too close. Even though we were wearing goggles and masks and gloves, we're producing a TV show like that, every day, just armored down. It was really challenging and very stressful. I think it's the most stressed I've ever been doing this job. And we shot in Atlanta and Savannah. And I just remembered I'm this stressed doing this job that I love, but I'm so stressed out this far away from everyone I love. So my support system, other than phones and texts, but you just need to be with your people. And I didn't have that because I'm in Atlanta shooting a show, so it was hard. And then you think, okay, we just got over this hurdle. Then a whole other group of people would go down with the virus, and you'd have to shut the show down and you'd have to quarantine. We had to be tested every single day to see. It was, when I look back, I'm like, you went and did a show and I'm a Black woman of a certain age with some certain underlying conditions, and all of that made you, a worse candidate to get COVID. So I was aware of that every day, that did I come to Atlanta and do this show to die? That was literally on your mind. And while we were producing it is when the first vaccines came out and we were able to get vaccinated.
Well, during the time of COVID, Dr. Henderson, that's one of the times that individuals became, certainly I did, that's one of the times that I start learning technology and videography and all these things. I started producing full grand scale concerts right here online. And I got to a point, I loved it. You know what? I loved it. I'm like, I don't have to sell no tickets. I don't have to go nowhere. I can do my work right here, teach the students. I mean, I remember one concert I put online. I must have spent 60 hours trying to produce this concert. Because originally I didn't know what I was doing.
Yes.
Just trying to. So I'm so proud of you because you got through it. But having said that, as a professor, how do you balance nurturing students' unique voices while teaching the fundamentals of screenwriting?
Oh, that's a good one. You know what? I love students. I love mentoring. And again, it always goes back to where I'm from. I have over 30 nieces and nephews. And several of them are in my life daily. When I finish talking to you later today, I have back-to-back Zooms with 3 nieces and a nephew. Because I'm away from home, I'm in Atlanta right now, and I don't let them get away from me, and they don't let me get away from them. So that's going to be the best part of my day today. But so I've always been like that. So when my students, for me, are an extension of my family. So I treat them, like that. When they mess up, I call them, like, I'm the worst professor if you don't really want to learn anything. Because when you don't show up to my class, I call you. Hey, you weren't in class today. And this generation of kids, they're not even used to their phones ringing because they're all like this with, their thumbs all day. So when their phone rings, they pick up because they're like, why is my phone ringing? And I'm like, why weren't you in class? Professor Henderson? You know, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, your homework's still due. And you have about, 20 minutes because until the time it's due there. Well, I can't do it. I said, oh, no. Well, can I turn late? You can't. I don't accept late work.
That's right.
And because you know what? I also have a life. And so I can't allow you to disrupt that life over here that I have because you want to be, not responsible.
That's right.
But I said, but I'll tell you, what I will do. You come see me in the office. You're on campus? Yes. So why didn't you come to class? I said, well, you know what? Come spend some time with me. You'll do your homework while I'm doing mine because I have a script due. The studio doesn't care about my teaching. So I have a script due. I'll write while you do your homework. So I go the extra mile because I love them. I enjoy it so much. And I'm always, looking for opportunities. This summer, like I'm on a show, and I started a new program at Northwestern called Emerging Artist Access, so that one of the students was able to spend a whole month on location and going to different departments, learning what locations department does, learning what the art department does, learning what the props department does. And they all loved him. He worked really hard because I'm like, don't forget, you're down here on my name and I don't play with my name. So I do talk to them like that too, So nurturing, and it just comes very natural to me. I think it's because I'm one of, 8. And I grew up in a family where the oldest were always responsible for the youngest, and we've passed that on. Some of my friends will see my nieces and nephews, even if they're with their kids, and they'll see them automatically grab a little one's hand. They're like, wow, how did you teach? I'm like, oh, I don't even notice it. That's just how we are. We know that even if you're 12, that means you're responsible for the one who's 6, so it's kind of baked into who I am, is to nurture and I'm responsible for them. They will never leave my, care, if you will, not knowing if the way they handled themselves in college, the way the attention they paid to work was good enough to make it in the business that I'm in. So that's sort of the positive of it, is that I'm a direct connection to the place they want to go. So if you're not doing well, I'll tell you, let me, what do you think would have happened if I told the studio, no, I'm probably not turning that script in because I had a cold last week. So a student did tell me that. I'm not ready because I had a cold a week ago. I was like, that's really an interesting thing for you. Where's your work? You had a cold a week ago, so you think your work isn't due right now? No,
That's right. It
doesn't work like that.
You know what? You have even a kinder approach than I take.
I already know that. I know you.
But I'll leave that alone.
I would never, ever, look, if I ever would have had the privilege of taking one of your classes, all my work would have been in early because I wouldn't want the wrath.
Always. I don't, I had wonderful students and wonderful teaching, but I was very, very firm, but I got a lot done. And the students learned a lot. But
you have to remember, one of your best students is like is not only my pastor, but my little brother.
That's
and
right.
I see the way he moves, and you taught him that. Everything that he learned under you. The program must start on time.
Absolutely.
You must be excellent. We don't do things halfway, like all of that. And he's always shared that's what he learned under your tutelage. So I know what it was like to be with you because I watched him not take any prisoners because of what he learned under you.
Yeah, Pastor Jonathan DeCure, I love.
That's right. Shout him out. Victory Bible Church in Pasadena.
That's right. You've been a trailblazer for Black creatives in Hollywood. What changes have you seen in industry, and what still needs to evolve?
Thank you. I know. So that's how you remind me that I'm old when you talk about being a trailblazer. I was at the Cannes Film Festival last summer, and I got a special award, and she said, "You are the godmother of Black drama on television." I said, "The godmother? Oh God!" I thought it sounded really, really cool, but I also felt really, really old. But it was a beautiful thing. I think one of the, I mean, there's so much beautiful, so many beautiful changes, that have happened. When I did Soul Food, for instance, I was the Black drama showrunner or executive producer, for those who don't know the term showrunner, of the show. And now, like, I can't even count with both hands how many Black women showrunner, executive producers are doing their thing. And the shows on television that, these powerful women are responsible for creating. It's so beautiful. And so I guess it makes me so happy. I think I also want and still, hope for progress in terms of, women, and certainly women of color, Black and brown, and women who are in positions of power to green light. There's been a lot of progress in that area too, but I would love to see more. I would love to see more. But at the same time, I am aware and I smile when I see, some of the shows, and some, like, even to the point of like, oh my God, when I see my students entering the business in a real way. I think it's so beautiful. Another big thing that has changed is access. The access point. It's like you said over COVID, how you learned to produce a concert online because now you have such access. So I'm so happy that I can say to my students, you don't have to wait for anyone. Like, you literally could shoot a film on your phone. So there's no barriers to entry anymore. You don't have to go buy a big expensive camera. Yes, they're beautiful. Yes, that you can make more beautiful pictures, but you can also tell a story right from your phone or from a very inexpensive camera. So I love that anyone who has a story to tell can now go tell it. You don't have to wait. There are no excuses. Well, I don't know. I don't have a camera. Yes, you do. Do you have a phone?
That's right. Mm-hmm. You know what? How do you navigate the tension between commercial success and cultural authenticity in your work and academic responsibilities?
Oh my God.
That's a big one.
You're going to make me send you my dissertation in a minute. Because in so many ways, that's exactly what I wrote about. Very much it is an ethnography, and more specifically an autoethnography, because I am placing my work right at the center of my study. And what I have learned about my work in the workplace, and this tension, as you said, between authenticity in your storytelling and what it takes to get the people who spend the money on your side. Sometimes you want to do something that is not exactly what they had hoped you were doing or that they want to see. And so I talk about it in my on my scholarly side. I talk about negotiated authenticity. And the idea that you want to be true to your vision, but you want to make sure it's not just a vision for one, yourself. You want people to see it. So how do you, all the ways that you can stay true to your vision and, pay attention to and respect the stakeholders who believed in you enough to put you in the position to have a vision. Very much I'm like, you have to decide what is most important to you, as opposed to treating everything preciously, like it's all so important, I can't bend at all. Well, if you don't want to bend in a business that's about collaboration, then you're in the wrong business. You have to decide on the things that, like, this is the most important thing I want to say. This is the most important. Everything else can be negotiated, you got to be more malleable so that you can go, okay, we have the same goal. You want a really great show, and I want a really great show. I'm the visionary behind that show who must decide what is the most important to me. You're going to fight over the name of a character? Why are you doing that? As long as your character, gets to do what you came to do, you're going to, don't fight over. Now, there's some things that get too big and you're like, I have to back away from this because it's asking me to go too far. But there aren't many of those things if you're open to collaboration.
Well, what you talk about is teamwork, basically. Teamwork and simply being flexible.
Yes.
Flexibility is the key in professional adventures. Professional adventures are different than a teacher-student relationship in some regard. A professional adventure is the real world.
Yes.
A teacher-student relationship is more of a softer parental relationship.
Yes.
But a professional adventure, you have to be more flexible and open. When I worked as the dean of department, I was the dean of STEAM, and I had all of these brilliant minds. When I wanted to have different professors, I could have taken the approach, you do this, you do that, and I did at times. But for the most time, I would try to find a way to prick their intellect so that they would feel like they were being treated with respect, and we would come to the same conclusion, And so I appreciate that approach. Just 2 more questions I have for you. What advice would you give aspiring writers who want to tell stories that challenge dominant narratives and uplift marginalized voices?
You know what? You cheated, I feel like, because you're like, hey, come have a talk with me. You didn't say and you better be bringing your A game because I'm going to be asking the hard questions. I appreciate you, though. I do. You know what? That's a great question to follow the last question that you asked, because it does still start with collaboration. And I often will tell students, my advice is to write what you know. Now, there are many ways of knowing. Sometimes writers hear write what you know and they think it just means write about your life story, but that's not what it means at all. You might write about some aspect of your life story. I have several times, but write what you know. There are many ways of knowing. You might know it through research. You might know it through meeting the person who went through it. But you need to know that you know that you know whatever it is, So talk again about my short film that we were on the film festival with, and we did very well. I wrote it, produced it, and directed it. It's called The Rebel Girls. And it's the true story of a group of girls who were arrested and then held for up to 60 days without their families knowing where they were. And it's set in Americus, Georgia, which is like a 3-hour drive south of Atlanta. But I went there and I interviewed some of the surviving women, and I spent time and I talked and talked and talked. And then I did all the research that I could. There's, it's not a lot known about them, so you have to do the deep dives. So I know this story now, so I'm writing what I know, but I know it not experientially. I wasn't in the 60s marching for our rights, but I know it through these women who have made themselves living research subjects for me, living history for me. So I tell writers, write what you know. No matter what the method is, you learn to know about that thing. The second part of what you're saying, in this world where you want to introduce folks who look like you, who are diverse in however you are diverse, rather it be racially, ethnically, even diverse thinking, diverse gender identities, just whatever it is, whatever your experience is. There's always a way to write about it, even in a mainstream world where you're saying, I'm inviting all people in to experience the experience of these people. Now, there's also a way of writing it that almost lets people know they're not invited. If you write all stories where mainstream, and i.e. white people, are always the enemy as opposed to complicated, interesting characters, then you're saying, I'm not inviting you in because I'm always just going to paint you as, the bad guy, instead of
Exactly.
writing interesting, complicated characters who look like all of us. So I think that what is important is to, and sometimes I think I say too, and I try to do myself, if you have a message, if you have politics, if you have, some important thing you want to say, that should be 5 layers under your writing. Sometimes young writers too, they got a point, they want to make it, and it's all here on the first level of their writing. But our first job is to entertain. That's what people are paying us for. We can say and have whatever opinions we want, but nobody wants to be preached to. So you hide it like, ooh, I'm going to put it 5 layers under. It actually makes your writing better and more complex. The other thing I say is that writers write and writers read. If you're not reading everything you can about the subject you're interested in, if you haven't read Shakespeare, because there's nothing new under the sun, there's so many cool, interesting ways that you will notice that people are just redoing all of the Shakespearean classics. You should read those so that every time you see it, you can identify it in contemporary pieces.
That's right.
You should absolutely, if you're interested in a certain, like I want to write action movies, then you should be reading all the top action movies. And I focus on reading rather than watching because we're writers. And so what you're seeing on the screen, well, they have the benefit of great production design and casting and music and sound. But what we're selling is what's on the page. So read what's on the page that got them the opportunity to make it, because that's what you'll be selling, is what you can do on the page.
That's right. You
Mm-hmm.
know what? It sounds like you're talking about life is duplicated in a sense, just in a different house.
Yes.
Life is just duplicated in a different house.
Over
Your
and
house
over and
over.
over.
That's right. And that's for all of us. That's for life in general. Every aspect in life, someone has lived it earlier, someplace in a different part of the world.
Yes.
And so I think that's the wonderful thing about what you do, is that you're able to make it more contemporary in its presentation. But if you really do the research, you're going to find many of these stories and complications earlier.
Yes, they've been told, but they haven't been told the way you can tell it.
That's right.
And the more specific you are, actually the more universal your story is. So, because you get specific about it, I've written about sort of being the one in my family, the one most financially successful, the one everybody knows they can depend on. But I write about it specifically from my experience. And the more specific it is, those little things, that what that means for people to be, can you pay my rent? Or I'm going to put that one through college. My friends from all different backgrounds, I have a friend who grew up on a farm in Iowa. She's like, I know that exact experience because I've written specifically like what it's about to be the one in your family. She knows even on a farm what it was like to be the one in her family. So we become more universal in our specificity about our own experience.
Dr. Felicia D. Henderson, what a wonderful professional you are, and what an enthralling interview this has been. I could speak with you, if time permitted, for another 20 years, but
I
unfortunately,
feel the same about you.
but unfortunately, that's probably not reasonable given your responsibilities and my time. So having said that, I would like to ask you, could you please share any final thoughts and ideas that you would like to communicate with the digital media community about what you do, who you are, and all those wonderful things?
Thank you. Um, I guess I'll talk. I will talk about. Who I am first and foremost is a child of God, who tries every day to look at the blessings that I have and remember that they are to be shared. Um, I try to remember that when I give any part of myself away, it is a way of saying thank you, God, for giving me the life you gave me. You didn't have to do it. When I'm sharing, mentoring, teaching, it is my way of saying you gave me this amazing gift that I can't explain, that I don't have anything to do with. You made me a writer. Yes, I'm a producer and a director as well, and a teacher, but you made me a writer. That's just a gift that I've been since I'm 8 or 9 years old. I've known, and people have talked about how different I was as a writer. So I didn't have anything to do with that, which means it must have come from him, which means that I can say thank you by just giving some of what I've learned about that away to other people, and making a path for them to also sojourn down. So I hope that's who I am. I also am one of first and foremost, or maybe second and foremost, I am an auntie, and I use that to and my godchildren and my actual nieces, my bio nieces and nephews are all in that group. I'm here for them. They are certainly gifts in my life. They make me laugh even when they don't mean to. I find them to be the most interesting people in the world, and I love that. And I think that, so very much the family chosen and God sent. I'm so blessed that that looks the way it does, from my girlfriends to my actual sisters, are really all my sisters. And then, I'm also a person who I'm still, when I say God is not through with me yet, I mean that in every way, that I'm learning more every day, that I'm trying to be better every day, that I'm asking myself whether I am in a place where I'm excited about or in a place that I wish I weren't. What did I do to get here? Is rather we're happy and it's good, or whether we wish it were better, we can always say, but what did I do to contribute? If it's good, I want to do more of that. So I need to know what I did. And if it's bad, I want to make sure I don't repeat that, so that I don't have to go down that journey or down that road again. Um, and of course, last but certainly not least, I'm a creator. I'm working on several projects right now, writing that for me to write and direct. I'm making a deal to write my first book right now. And I'm very excited about that as well. And my amazing dissertation chair at UCLA, John Caldwell, is already like, time to set up the meetings for you to write the book version now of your dissertation. So I'll also have that coming up. So I'll have my first, scholarly offering out there. I won't say soon because that's going to take a minute. I brought at least a couple of years to write that. But I'm excited that I'm also, because I always want to be learning and improving and growing. So I'm going to be writing my first historical fiction novel. And I'm also going to be writing my first book, academic book based on my dissertation work. And other things as well. So I have some stuff coming out. So you look for me, Professor. Look for me.
I'm gonna look for where I want to finally say your interview has improved me today, because it's improved me in that you have shared such a creative insight, and I still go back to the fact that that's who you are, a creative professional that God created, and how you bless the world. As the president of Professor for Life Incorporated, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule and giving just us some of your world-acclaimed knowledge and skills. Thank you once again. And at Professor for Life Incorporated, we will love you forever. We will pray for you forever. God bless you. And take care of yourself, and we hope to be in contact with you soon.
I love you and I appreciate you. And because of your stance as a professor for life, you have encouraged me. You never stopped. You finished with your Ph.D. yet. You always, always, always encouraged me. And I knew that you would be one of the people who was the most excited that
Very, very much so.
So I thank you for just being you and for holding space for people like me and for seeing me. And I thank you for these interviews, by the way. I'm enjoying them so much. And I think I became a better public speaker from the last one you did, that amazing public speak. Like, I learned something from every one of them. So please keep doing what you're doing. I love them so much.
I shall do so. You have a positive day, and please give a hug to your wonderful, wonderful nieces and nephews.
Thank you. We appreciate you so much. God bless you. Talk to
God
you
bless you.
soon.
Bye bye now.